That is nasty. Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We made the sound from Skrillex Visual Riot while you were sleeping. And it's all made in stereo with just a couple of external effects, as I mentioned in my Instagram post. But now let's just compare it with the original one. Pretty much close, I would call. Just a few tones in the high frequency. But by the way, the download link for this preset would be available under the description of this video. And also there's a link where you can buy me a coffee to support me doing this continuously, or buy myself a decent microphone, because as you can see, this one sounds awful. I'm using my smartphone and it also captures like a lot of environment and everything. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I usually come up with the sounds so you can follow along with me. I'm not going to go through like every effect because there's a lot going on in here, as you can see. But you're going to get the idea. A lot of tricks and tips would be given away during this process. But if you want to just go and download the preset and play around with it, you're welcome to do it. However, I highly encourage you to follow along with the tutorial because it's going to be really helpful. Okay, so what I usually like to do when I start a sound initiating a preset is to separating everything. I usually have like low end, which is usually my stop, and then having like my 3 oscillators to support mid and high frequency, and then adding additional higher frequency just to blend in. Either way, it's going to be external, direct out, or even like a noise, just a sample, anything. But at the first place, I would try to make everything within the oscillators to just fulfill the mid and high frequency. When I say that, I don't mean just by an oscillator or in the main page of the oscillator page of the serial. I mean like even the boss channels, I separate everything as much as I can so I have more control over the sound. And if you want my honest opinion about this sound, I don't think this sound was made in stereo. I think this sound was made in an actual FM synthesis. So what I did over here, I tried to replicate what's happening inside FM synthesizers. So, okay, let's just dive in. So as you can see, I do have like my stop at the very beginning, and it's just supporting my low end as I mentioned. And this one goes to the Boss 2. And on the Boss 2, there's nothing going on except just overdrive 10 stacks and just a lookup just to remove the high end. And here's well, I'm not sure if it's a bug or it's a feature. Here's the thing about overdrive. When you have like so many stacks on top of each other, when you hit a note and you release the note, you're going to hear some tails afterwards. So in terms of fixing that, one of the things that you can do is just using your envelope 1, which is going to be your amplitude envelope, on top of mix. So whenever you're hitting like a note, it goes like all the way up, and when you release it, it goes all the way down. It's just going to remove all those tails, and the problem will be solved for you. And this boss channel on the stop goes to the main. So here's another thing. You don't have to necessarily follow exactly what I'm saying, and there's obviously not one way to create this sound or any other sound. You can come up with different avenues, and it's up to you and your taste. So we move on to the 3 oscillators. Now, these 3 oscillators support mid and high. That was the idea at the very beginning, okay? And what I did, I just had like a sine wave and PD from B and some FM from C. And what is a little bit different in here, and you might be thinking, oh, what's going on in here? It's going to be like when you PD from a different oscillator, you usually come up with that will fulfill the, well, you know, what is going on in the high end. And one of the things that you can do is just adding a low pass filter. So you do have more control over there of your second oscillator feeding your phase distortion. So keeping in mind, this is going to be like really helpful to play around with the low pass filter and the phase distortion. And so you get like a certain point where you're satisfied with the sound, so you can move forward. And I do have a small FM from C. And another thing is going to be like unison, which is going to be like on 7. Not much of difference, to be honest, at the beginning. I was thinking to just keep it white at the very beginning, and I just realized with a lot of process and everything, I'm messing up with the sound. So I keep it super mono, and the range is on 0. How I put the stacks on minus 24, center minus 24. And to be honest, if I change this to 1, there's a tiny difference and in there, possibly because of a lot of distortion and everything was happening right afterward. But it does help, in my opinion. But if you just remove it and tell me it doesn't make any changes, I'm probably not going to able to notice it at all. But just keep in mind, when I'm trying to make a sound, if I found something that sounds good, I always go for that. And like I said, I tried to make it like a stereo at the very beginning, and then I realized that I'm messing up with the sound, and I came back and fixed it. So what it means is that you don't have to follow exactly like in series. As long as you have more control over your sound, you can always come back and fix the issue. Okay, and that's the point with separating and everything. So you know what's going on inside your preset. Okay, moving on, and we go to the filter routing. This is going to be like a really fun part. It's going to make things a little bit complex. However, it doesn't necessarily, again, means that you have to follow along with the same exact thing. So I do have my wavetable one going to filter 1, which is a famous flanger, and then this goes to the filter 2. And filter 2 would have a parallel. So one goes to the boss 1, and one goes to the main. And if you remember, my boss 2 was already reserved for the sub channel. So we're done with that for now. Okay? And on my oscillator 2, there's going to be like a filter between, it goes to the both filter. And the idea came from Massive, where you had like a slider for individual oscillators, where you could send the oscillator sound to filter 1 and 2. And there was also an oscillator slider on the filter to mix it between series and parallel. However, serial 2 is way more complex and flexible. You can come up with a different sound. So both of them are just going in parallel to these two filters, but by the end, again, it goes to different channels. Did I have any idea about this? No. But I found that when you have like a parallel mixing, you do have more control again over your sound. The small changes would actually make small changes. We have like a removing frequency and adding a distortion. There's not going to be like so much impact on your sound because it's going to blend in with what you have in a parallel process. So going to the effects, and we're going to remove, we're not going to think about the noise oscillator over here because it does nothing at this point. I mean, when I started to make the sound, but the effects is going to be like the important part. Oh, I forgot to mention about the LFOs. There's nothing going on with the LFOs, to be honest. It's only just pitch over here, plus 24, that goes a little bit down. And this one is a PD. It doesn't make any changes if I just remove this. Let me just check the sound. Not much of difference, no. And this one is just fixing like the octave range. It's just, I mean, the whole main tuning, I mean. So I can just drag it down and just go 1 octave upper using my keyboard. And I always love to play around with the octaves and semitones and everything. So another fun part, another funny thing would be like the fact that you probably noticed that there's -3 on the oscillator B and oscillator C. Because when you usually go for like phase distortion from any other oscillator, you usually go with +4, +5, or +7, just to replicate the fifth note or etc. Or you go the opposite direction. However, for this particular one, it goes -3. Why? Because I was thinking to replicate the FM synthesis. So I wasn't thinking about any rule. FM synthesizers are so sensitive, and if you just tweak around with the knob, the whole sound would be different. And same goes with this. However, On the original song, if you go and search it up for yourself, you will see that the root note for the song is G sharp. But what I did over here is having it on note B. Okay, so -3, we put it back to G sharp, if you may call it. However, on myself, I do have -3, and doesn't necessarily again mean that you should come up with the same exact idea to just make this sound. No, play around with the notes, semitones, and everything. Probably come up with the same idea. I mean, not specifically only this one, but different sounds. So fuck all the rules. Okay, that is the point of this video, up to this point that we're talking about. So now we're moving on to the effects section. So same idea. Again, I tried to separate everything as much as possible. So Boss 2, if you do remember, we did have like our sub channel on top of it on here. And on the Boss 1, what I did was just removing the high end. Well, you know, when you play around with the filters, I'm not sure why I did this. When you play around with the filter and you do have a distortion right after it, again, there's going to be some high frequency produced by the distortion, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I did this like, well, you know, in series. I usually go with my flow and the sound, but I just removed the high frequency and I went to the splitting low, mid, high. At this point, I was very sure that I don't have to do anything with the low because my sub was pretty much solid. I knew that I don't want to touch it. I want to go with that. Either way, for this sound or any other sound, my sub is always there. And so I play around with the mid and high. So let's go to the mid section. So I put on like an X-shaper, and I like X-shaper more than any other distortion. But again, I just go with the flow. I usually start with this because you can play around with the well, you know, shapes and everything, and then you can come up with the different ideas and the sounds. It will be a little bit different. I put on like an OTT. As you can see, the high is -24 right now because I was about to having separate high processing over here on this section, and just increase the mid-range in it, and then I remove the unwanted frequency, the harsh frequency, if you may call, and then gluing things together. And also, in general, what I do right after separating everything is just using distortions, OTT, and EQs just to boost everything and glue everything together, and again, removing unwanted frequencies. So I do this in the preset like for so many times, right? Inside one preset, I go with like distorted, remove some frequency, distorted, remove some frequency, and until I'm satisfied with the sound. So you're gonna see me doing that a lot in this preset and many other sounds that I'm making. Some of the sounds are pretty much easy, straightforward, but this one was a little bit more complex, like I said, because I was thinking to replicate OTT, well, FM synthesizer. Moving on to the high. Again, X-shaper, just to play around with the shape of the sound in the high end. I found out that I don't want to play around with the low end and mid, and just the high and boosting it, removing unwanted frequency, glue things together using tape saturator, and again, removing unwanted frequency. And then right afterward, everything goes to another OTT just to glue everything again together, and hyperdimension just to make it wide. So at this point, my idea was just to have the 3 oscillators that supposed to mid and high to be wide, either way from the unison or in here, using hyperdimension. However, by the end of the day, I came up with just not having it turned on at all. So wideness is turned off all the way, and I had to do is I came up with the idea to just having it separately. So if I just turn this all the way up, I remove my own external wider. The hyperdimension gives a little bit of tonality on the mid-range, which I don't want to. But when I go with my own wider on the chain effects, it's way more better. It sounds way more better. And to be honest, this effect is nothing but just a hard left and hard right. So this channel, this boss would go to the main. So again, what we did here, having like this boss 2 as low end, boss 1 supporting mid and high, and main also as well, because as you remember, we have like this parallel processing. However, on the main channel right here, the sub is also included. So this is where everything glued together. So it's just a matter of like adding more frequencies, removing frequencies, boosting the sound, and just giving the power that it needs. So I came up with the idea that I'm losing some mid frequency. Again, I boosted them and then just remove some unwanted frequencies. And what I usually love to do, and here's another fun fact, because I found that the interface for Serum is not really convenient if you want to make all the way in Serum. What I usually do is having like Pro Q on my channel, and then I just look at the frequency. And I just realized, for example, 20K here, minus, I reduced the volume by minus 4.73. And I go back to my Serum and add the same, adjust the same equalizer settings inside the Serum. And I just removed it. I compare it just to make sure that it's sounding exactly. And then I go back to my Pro Q and just find out if I want to remove any unwanted frequency. So again, adding distortion, glue things together. Oh, I don't want the high end at this point. This is where I realized I don't want the high end from the oscillators. So this is where I decided to add my external noise oscillator, which is going to be directly out. And however, it's harder to just now glue these things together because every effect that I'm applying here is going to be only for the oscillator, ABC, and SAW. And noise is going just out. So the saturator at the end with the low pass on reverb glue compressor is a place where, again, everything comes together again. So I removed the higher frequency at this point, okay? And I realized I don't want them. Okay? And this is going to be like my final stage. This is going to be my main channel. So there's not going to be like any additional parallel processing. So this is the end for me. And again, removing some unwanted frequency, and again, adding OTT just to boosting the sound. Again, removing unwanted frequencies. You're going to see that a lot. I come up with this idea like in a sound like so many times to just boost the sound. And oh, this sound is, I usually check with Pro Q, as I said. Oh, this frequency is super harsh. Let's just remove it. And going back, boosting it again, and oh, this is harsh, until again I'm satisfied that the sound, every spectrum is fulfilled with my output. And in the end, this is, to be honest, supposed to be where I'm done with Serum preset. Okay, so I added like another overdrive with a little bit of pre-filter, and this is going to be like really fun. What I like to do is when you put a distortion, you realize that it's going to clip your sound and reduce the volume. What I like to do is just crank it up. Just boost the volume to the top so I can, again, hear all the details. So if I just put it back to just what it was, also just remove the white noise. This is the sound. All the processing that we did is now right here. This is the final result. You might be thinking, this is awful. Is it worth it? Probably no. It could be easier for you just to make this sound, well, in a different way. But here we are, right? That's all we need. And again, I realized, oh, these frequencies, I don't want them. Let's just remove them. These are like the final touches for me. And just like many other presets, I just remove the mono. I just make everything mono at the lower frequency. And here's another thing. If you use a lot of distortion and OTT and everything, and you realize, oh, my amplitude envelope doesn't work properly, well, in this case happened to me too. And what I usually do is just having like set it to one of these volumes. So at the end of the chain, so I can have more control over the attack, decay, and release. So if I just remove this amplitude envelope and I increase the attack, there's not going to be any attack applied to the sound. Again, just because of a lot of distortion, a lot of processing. But when I do, I'm not sure what is happening. It probably is a bug or something. But when I do it at the end of the chain, I do have more control over the sound. Just like many other sounds, what we have here is just a reverb and delay. And that's all. Okay, now let's just move on to the chain effects. Okay, what do we have here is just again, external wire. Like I said, it's just a hard and left, hard and right. And a saturator just to glue things together. And a low pass filter just to make it sound like the original one in the song. And some additional reverb. I can get rid of the reverb here too. Yes. And a glue compressor just to glue things together. And yeah, that's all. And that is how I usually do the sounds. And okay, thank you for watching this video. Hope you learned something. And if you enjoyed this content, please give me a like, subscribe. And please, if you can, use the link below just to donate me. My YouTube is not monetized and I don't have any income out of it. So I really appreciate your support. All right, peace out.